Good morning. This is the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration, meeting number 7, Thursday, November 28th. This meeting is televised. Appearing before us this morning is the Honourable Chris Alexander, Minister of Citizenship and Immigration. He has some of his colleagues here. We're here today to discuss the supplementary estimates under Citizenship and Immigration. Welcome, Minister. This is your first appearance before the best committee in the entire House of Commons.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations on your reappointment to this enormously prestigious position. And if it is the best committee, and I firmly believe that it is in large measure because of your exceptional leadership.
All right. You got 10 minutes.
I apologize for having come down the hall a minute or two late. We were under the misapprehension that a certain vote was still happening. Je suis très heureux de vous présenter le budget.
I'm very pleased to be here to present my department's supplementary estimates B for fiscal year 2013-2014 and to answer your questions. I am here with officials from my department, which I have my very gifted Deputy Minister here.
Estimates, but also to put them in the context of the many positive reforms that we continue to implement to Canada's immigration system. Changes that will help ensure immigration has a more direct and positive impact on our economy. Changes that will continue to reduce abuse of our immigration and asylum system and modernize the security dimension of our immigration system as the demands placed upon it by immigrants, by visitors, by students, by business people continue to grow and need to grow for us to realize the potential that we know this country has for growth and to seize the moment that we are all very conscious deserves to be seized. Supplementary estimates B includes allocations that will help us to continue to implement some of these important reforms. Among them, and perhaps the most consequential, is an $8.4 million allocation to support the implementation of electronic travel authorization, or ETA. The ETA is a very quick online form for travelers to Canada who don't need visas to come here. This simple process will help us to prevent criminals and terrorists from entering Canada and will literally protect the vast majority of travelers who are legitimate travelers from being tied up in the bureaucracy and scrutiny that these higher risk groups need to be subjected to, but not the vast majority of travelers. Travel authorization for all visa-exempt passengers before ticket purchase will buttress Canada's security systems. It's a best practice. Many of our partners, maybe not many, but several of our partners have it in full measure. As you know, Mr. Chair, under the Action Plan on Perimeter Security and Economic Competitiveness, we committed to work with the United States to enhance the security of our borders. ETA will allow us to screen visitors from countries that do not require a visa and who travel by air to Canada. The exception, of course, would be our American neighbors who are with us inside the perimeter. Working together, our travel authorization systems will not only help to address possible security threats to North America, they will also help us ease the flow of travelers who do not pose any potential risk to our countries. That's because we'll be able to identify and screen out inadmissible individuals while they're still overseas, rather than when they arrive at a Canadian port of entry, which represents potentially a considerable cost savings as well. Another commitment under Beyond the Border involves Canada and the U.S. working together to establish and coordinate entry and exit information systems. I know You have discussed these arrangements in this committee, and they have been raised at public safety as well. Under this initiative, Canada is developing a system to exchange land traveler information with the U.S. so that a record of land entry into one country is considered a record of exit from the other. Once the system is in place, we will know who entered Canada and when they left. Invaluable information when one is tracking the integrity of one's immigration and visitor visa system. This will provide my department with valuable, objective travel information that will assist with the processing of cases and identifying instances of fraud across multiple business lines. Et dans le budget supplémentaire des dépenses de citoyenneté et immigration.
And also in CIC's supplementary estimates, we have $1.2 million in allocation to upgrade our IT system to access entry and exit information
And safeguard our asylum system. $3 million is being allotted for the Global Assistance for Irregular Migrants program. This program furthers our government's commitment to combating human smuggling, which, regrettably, sadly, is a profit-driven criminal activity that exploits vulnerable people and poses a threat to the integrity of our borders. Through the program, Canada is providing support to migrants who are intercepted as part of the disruption of a human smuggling operation. The program will also help manage the basic needs of intercepted migrants, ensuring that they have food, water, and shelter, as well as voluntary returns and reintegration in their country of origin. As you know, Mr. Chair, under the 2012 Budget Implementation Act, passed by Parliament, CIC is terminating applications and returning fees paid by certain federal skilled worker applicants who applied before February 27, 2008. The elimination of this large backlog of applications will allow the department to focus on new applicants with the skills and talents our economy needs right now, talented people from around the world who will most successfully contribute to our future prosperity. Cette initiative permettra également au Canada de substituer.
Initiative will also allow Canada to move from a passive economic immigration to an active recruiting under new application intake system.
Dramatic reduction in processing times that we've seen for the federal skilled worker program from 7 or 8 years at its peak in its legacy form as we inherited it from the previous Liberal government down to approximately 1 year now. Mr. Chair, our #1 priority remains the economy. Immigration is a key part of the government's plan to grow it, spur job creation, and ensure long-term prosperity for all Canadians. Our immigration plan for 2014 will help meet our economic needs by maintaining the highest sustained level of immigration in Canadian history, et en plus de continuer à accueillir des nombres records.
And as we continue to welcome record high numbers of immigrants, we are also committed to transforming the immigration system into one that is faster, more flexible, and focused on meeting Canada's economic and labor market needs.
That many of the security measures, the immigration security measures that are being implemented by transfers made under these supplementary B estimates flow out of recommendations of this committee. If you look at electronic travel authorizations, the need for biometrics, migrant smuggling prevention, exit entry, these all relate to your previous studies, to your input, and so they are a matter of a high level of consensus within this Parliament and across Canada. We completely transformed the federal skilled worker program with new criteria to select skilled workers who will be better positioned to succeed in and contribute to the Canadian economy. Let's keep in mind the economic outcomes from our federal skilled worker program remain among the best we have, superior to almost every other immigration program in the country. We want them to stay that way. We've also created new economic immigration programs that respond to emerging economic trends. 2 have been launched this year alone. One of them is the Startup Visa program, unique to Canada, a step to ensuring the entrepreneurs, particularly in the technology field, but anyone who wants to be part of this startup nation, is cleared to become a permanent resident once they do a deal with a venture capital partner, an angel investor, or an incubator. And this gives us a particular focus on innovation and entrepreneurship. The other is the Federal Skilled Trades Program, created only in January in response to requests from Canadian employers to more quickly and efficiently bring to Canada skilled tradespeople to work in construction, transportation, manufacturing, and service industries. The first ones, as you know, arrived in August. Monsieur le Président, ces programmes et l'ensemble de
Mr. Chair, these programs and our immigration system as a whole are vital to Canada's long-term economic health and to our competitiveness on the international stage and long-term prosperity.
and the measures we are carrying forward with these estimates help us remain successful as we compete with other industrialized countries who must also rely on immigration to help fuel their economic growth. We want the best people to come here and not go there. Our government fully believes that Canada can and should compete actively to attract the best and brightest newcomers to resettle here. To that end, as you all know, we've been working on a brand new recruitment model that will select immigrants based on the skills and attributes Canadian employers need. We're consulting the provinces, territories, and employers on this new way of managing economic immigration applications that will create a pool of skilled workers to be matched to employers and who benefit from expedited processing. We've discussed it here before. There will be two steps: an indication of interest step, which will involve providing information electronically about skills, educational credentials, language ability, work experience, and other attributes. Those who meet the eligibility criteria will have their expressions of interest placed in a pool, placed in priority order, ranked against others in the pool, and only the best candidates, including those with in-demand skills or with job offers, will be invited to make a formal application for permanent residence. It'll be faster. We will only be inviting the numbers to apply for whom we have the capacity to process. It will make our system dramatically better. Because Canadians can only submit an immigration application if and when they are, candidates I should say, can only submit if and when they are drawn from the pool and invited to apply, backlogs will become a thing of the past. We'll certainly be able to match more efficiently application intake to capacity and speed processing times. Mais on fera ça sur la base d'un partenariat.
We'll do that in terms of partnership with our provincial, territorial, and private sector partners. This new model is going to allow us to work more quickly. Under the old formula, the candidates that had a passive approach to, we will be moving to an active approach, and our candidates will represent a very large skilled pool. In other words, the best candidate, not the first one who applied. Needless to say, it will be more responsive to Canada's ever-changing labour market needs and will help ensure that newcomers achieve great success and make positive contributions to Canadian society as soon as possible after their arrival.
Mr. Chair, we will remain on track to continue updating Canada's immigration program, modernizing it, tailoring it to the needs of a 21st century economy that moves at the speed of business and competes with other potential countries with active immigration programs. Thank you for your attention, for the opportunity to present, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, for your presentation. We, committee members, will have some questions and comments. Mr. Meningakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for joining us today and for your testimony. I also want to thank our officials for joining us today. Look forward to hearing from all of you. Let me first begin by wishing all of our friends celebrating today from the Jewish community a Hag Hanukkah Sameach. Minister, in your testimony you referred a fair bit to backlogs and the significant actions that our government has taken to reduce those backlogs. Could you tell us that if no actions were taken, what would the backlog be today compared to what it is now?
Sure. Thanks for the question. Well, to take one very concrete example, which comes up a lot in our constituency work, I know across the country, Chandigarh. Backlogs are still an issue there, but the approval rate was also an issue. And until we reformed the regulation of consultants, strengthened our partnership with India to make sure integrity was on the agenda from both sides, we had a very low approval rate, 34%. In 2004. I'm proud to report that in 2012 it was 53% and continues to rise, a 19% increase. But on backlogs, in 2006 we inherited a backlog across the board, across all programs of 843,434 applications. The better part of 1 million. It went up and peaked at 1 million before we had fully implemented the measures we now have in place. And since that peak, it has steadily declined to the point where today we are at, in 2013, 475,000 with continued declines projected for next year and the year after. If no action had been taken, if we had remained on the same path, we would certainly be in the neighborhood of 1.7 million in the backlog now, moving to 2 million and above next year. And above and beyond that, Mr. Menegakis, as you know, we would be continuing to break faith with applicants because we would be accepting applications that we had no capacity realistically to process. And so the date when they would be processed would be ever further ahead. And we've all read novels from great artists with famous names like Kafka and Orwell where these kinds of things happened. They should never have happened in Canada, and we are proud to have made progress in ensuring they never happen again.
Thank you. Minister, can you comment on wait times now that our government has sustainably reduced the backlog in family reunification? How has the average waiting time changed?
For which kinds of applications? Visitors, immigrants? I mean, let me give you an example, and then you tell me if there are other areas that are of interest. Federal Skilled Workers Program.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands in the backlog, a peak wait time of 7 or 8 years. Imagine an engineer who applied in 1995, 1994, 1999 to work in the dynamic field of aerospace engineering or advanced manufacturing or the oil sands, only to be told that your application will be processed in 7 or 8 years. You won't be accepted necessarily. You'll be processed. How do you plan your career in that case? How do you know what the Canadian economy will look like in 7 or 8 years? How do you know what to do in the interim? No one plans their lives like that, and we were wrong to expect that we would get the economic immigrants that we needed with such a long backlog. Today, following the measures your committee has helped us take, the waiting time is 1 year. The point system has been changed. The assessments of our labor market are improving, and the match between federal skilled workers and the real needs of employers is tighter than ever. Under expression of interest, it's going to go from 1 year down to 6 months. We hope it will go below that, but let's start with 6 months. That will be a major improvement and also put us in a very competitive frame. With regard to parents and grandparents, there's been some controversy on this front. When we came into office, it was 64 months or more. And then, because the policy was in place, more applications were coming, not enough being processed, the wait time went up. We are proud to say that now the backlog is smaller than it was for parents and grandparents than when we came into office. It was 108,000. Now it's something like 90, or will be by the end of this year. The wait time is 64 months or less. And last year, 2012, this year, 2013, and next year, 2014, we will have admitted a record number of parents and grandparents while managing the intake of new applications so that we're not taking them under false pretenses and positioning ourselves to reopen to a limited number of new applications in 2014, as you know we will do. In addition, while trying to restore trust with families who want their parents and grandparents here and who have a right to expect reasonable processing times, we've innovated. We put in place, not every parent, grandparent wants to come as an immigrant. We put in place the super visa, which has proven to be more popular than anyone anticipated, more than 1,000 being issued per month, not just in India, around the world, multiple entry visas, secure access for weddings, to help with childcare, for all kinds of purposes, but without putting that undue cost, enormous additional cost on the Canadian healthcare system because the families themselves assume the cost of health insurance.
Thank you very much, Minister. That's a very thorough response. It actually covered everything. So thank you so much. I'm done, Mr. Chair, with my question.
You are indeed. Mr. Cash.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'd like to thank the members of your team, Minister, for taking the time out of what's no doubt an incredibly busy schedule to be here before this committee. And you know, as I listen to the Minister, as I listen to you, it almost sounds as though your government hadn't been the government for the last 8 years, and that wait times were simply and exclusively the cause of the former government. I know that for anyone listening to this deliberation at home, immigrants waiting years and years to get word on whether their parents or grandparents will be able to unite with them here in Canada. Your deliberations today are cold comfort for the parade of people that come into our offices asking for some kind of help on this. Through these estimates, we see that CIC is getting extra funds for operating expenditures. Okay, so what isn't clear is how these funds are going to reduce wait times for families waiting to reunite, or for living caregivers waiting to get their permanent residency, which, as you know, is an outrageously long wait for those in that program. The moratorium on parent and grandparent applications will continue in January with a limit of 5,000 applications per year. So people are already facing excessive wait times to reunite with their families. And according to your own website this morning, more than 8 years for countries like China, India, the Philippines, and Sri Lanka. So if the CIC is receiving more money for its operations, why is this cap in place, and how are wait times actually going to come down for those that are currently waiting and have been waiting for years for their permanent residency, vis-a-vis the living caregiver program, or for their parents and grandparents?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Cash, for the question. Everything we do is focused on reducing those backlogs and wait times. And we have brought them down overall by 50% or more. In federal skilled workers, even more dramatically. In parents and grandparents, I went into some detail about what we've done. And yes, the backlog is not gone, but those in the backlog are being processed at an unprecedented rate. And I hope that when Canadians, whoever they are, applicants, relatives of applicants, when they come into our offices as MPs, I hope they get this information. It's certainly there on our website. It's certainly there in the testimony in front of this committee that 25,000 parents and grandparents, a record number, were processed in 2012, and even more will be processed this year, that the super visa is available. We want families to have those options, and we want that backlog to come down. Yes, we'll open to a limited number of new applications last year, but that's because we're processing 20,000 more applications from the backlog. And you won't find any other country in any jurisdiction that is as generous to families as we have been, and rigorous in protecting the applications and processing the applications of those that were submitted in this case. What we don't want is to return to the dark days when we were accepting applications under a misapprehension. People thought we had the capacity to process them, that we would process them now. In fact, we were piling them onto inventories, and we're no longer doing that.
I just want to get to that, to this, because you've repeated it now twice, about not having the capacity. What do you mean you just simply don't have enough people to process the applications? And might not that have something to do with cuts right across the, on this government side?
What
are you talking about when you say you don't have the capacity? What does that mean?
This government has put more resources into citizenship and immigration than ever before.
You don't have the capacity. What does that mean?
We are processing the largest sustained levels of absolute numbers of immigration in Canadian history. And we have the resources to do that. What we don't have the resources to do is more than that. If we accept applications that would justify twice the immigration we're getting, 3 times the immigration, we don't have the resources to process those. We have the resources to process our immigration levels plan for 2014, which is at the same level as we've had in recent years. In fact, the target is slightly higher. 63% economic immigration, 26% family reunification, very strong number, and 11% still strong on the refugee and humanitarian case. We have the resources to do that. We don't have the resources to process applications that are not part of that plan. And yes, some of that plan involves processing applications that are in inventories.
Yeah.
On living caregivers, if I can just respond to your earlier question, we are also taking action. It's not part of these supplementary estimates B because we have those resources already in place under our levels plan, but we are committed to processing 17,500 live-in caregivers from that backlog, which also grew up under the Liberals, has continued to grow up and needs to come down.
Okay, finally, because I just have a short period of time here. You mentioned the EOI system again today, and I appreciate that this is a brand new system that you're rolling out in 2015. But I want to ask you again, because you've made a quite a remarkable statement that you're going to bring these wait times down to 6 months for federal skilled workers. So when are we going to see?
Exciting, isn't it?
Well, when are we going to see the ministerial instructions that outline the invitation criteria? When are we going to see that criteria and turn this from a campaign slogan into some real policy here?
Well, anyone who's been following the estimates process, the budgetary process, the legislative process, will know that we are engaged with this Budget Implementation Act, which we discussed last time, in our third round of legislative change to support expression of interest. And a lot of what we're doing with backlogs and so forth is to prepare the ground for expression of interest. On the exact timing of ministerial instructions to govern the criteria, the final criteria, I will defer to my colleagues. But keep in mind that expression of interest is not a new program. There is a tendency to say, the criteria are changing, selection is changing. But can I just say, it's a framework for the existing programs. So Federal Skilled Workers Program, the criteria changed in May. You all know about that. It's in force. Those will remain the criteria unless we change them. We don't have a current plan to change them under EOI January 1st, 2015.
Thank you. Mr. McCallum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Minister and his officials for being here. I think it was Mark Twain that originated the phrase lies, damned lies, and statistics, which I think characterizes well the highly selective exchange between the Minister and Mr. Menegakis. This is not a question. I just want to repeat for the record that while backlogs and waiting times are related to each other, what matters for real people is waiting times. And under the watch of this government, waiting times for family class increased from an average of 13 months in 2007, which is when this government was in power, to 34 months in 2012, even longer if you take the last 12 months. And waiting times today are 5 years or more for family class, for investment class, for entrepreneurs, 3 years plus for live-in caregivers, etc. So those are the true facts coming from the government's own website. But I don't want to belabor this point because we've had this exchange before. My main issue I want to raise is my contention that the United States is obviously way bigger than Canada and has advantages over Canada, but Canada, as a smaller country, can only compete with the United States if we are nimbler and more agile. But in terms of admitting visitors, I would argue the U.S. is far more agile than Canada, which has deleterious effects on our economy, on our business, on our tourism industry, on families, etc. And recently we saw the ambassador from either Mexico or Brazil or both complaining in the press of the huge forms that people had to fill in to come to Canada, asking questions like where your mother was born and other irrelevancies. I know the United States interviews visitors, but we've compared waiting times, and for countries I've examined, the waiting times are significantly higher for Canada. The worst cases would be 50 days for Islamabad versus 16 days for United States from Islamabad, 37 days from Colombo versus 3 from the U.S. I know we have security concerns, but the U.S. has 9/11, not us, and we seem to be far worse than they are. So given the damage this does to our economy, to new Canadians, and to our tourism industry, why are we so much worse than the Americans in terms of allowing visitors into this country?
Well, first of all, we are not necessarily worse, Mr. Chair.
Well, that's what the numbers show.
No, but let's not gloss over the intrusiveness of an interview. Most Canadian visitors to Canada do not undergo an interview. Everyone does in the case of the United States. And in many cases, people wait up to 3 months for that interview to take place. And that is, in addition to the other paper processing times, document processing times that can be quite substantial. There is room for improvement on our visitor side. None of us is disguising that fact. You saw some of the numbers in processing times move during the withdrawal of services we had from one of our public sector unions over the summer. We are sensitive to growth spikes in demand in different parts of the world, and we can't necessarily move resources around as easily as we would like to do. And we want to discuss, we are studying this, and we want to continue discussing potential improvements with the committee. But can I just
Well, my time is running out. I have the numbers
we have
here
online
showing
applications
that U.S. times is substantially lower than Canadian times. I
Yes,
don't
US
think
times
that's
are slower, I agree.
acceptable for a small country which has so many disadvantages relative to the giant of the world, which is the United States. But I want to ask one question about the Philippines and Typhoon Haiyan. One of your officials, Diane Burrows, was here, and I asked her whether the government would release to Parliament the information about expedited entry for Filipinos, because we applaud the sentiment, but we think from the experience of Haiti, the results have not always been good. So will you tell us the results? And to quote Diane Burrows, she said, "I certainly hope that that will be the case. That would be something that we would put forward to the Minister for consideration. We're prepared to do that."
You're running out of time, Mr. McCallum.
So my question is, will you do that? And if so, when, and what information will you give us?
The results are good. Manila is truly processing those applications we wanted them to give priority to. If anyone has information on applications that haven't gotten priority but deserve it, they should let us know. On visas, online applications, now 30% of our workload. Multiple entry visas are going to become more and more prevalent in our system. And if we have backlogs, Mr. Chair, across the board, it is because those backlogs started under a Liberal government. And this is what we never hear from acknowledged by Mr. McCallum or other Liberals. It's a nightmare we inherited, and we are trying to awake.
I'm going to stop there, Mr. Minister, and move on to Mr. Weston. And Mr. McCallum, you'll have to withhold yourself.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et merci.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you to the Minister for being here again today. I do have two questions that are linked to Mr. McCallum and Mr. Cash's questions. But first of all, I would like to say that no matter what the government is, the government of the day is, it's important for the minister to have professional experience and antecedents that go hand in hand with the demands of being a minister. Your experience ensures that in the minds of Canadians, you can do the job that you hold today. The two questions that I mentioned deal with the allegation that we have not properly improved the rate of processing and the processing time. What is the rate of acceptance for those applications that have been submitted at our office in Chandigarh since 2006? I would hope that you have this information at hand, Mr. Minister. Yes, Mr. Weston, I do. Thank you for your question. We have tripled the number of visas issued at Chandigarh since 2006. In 2004, there were 3,300 visas that were issued. In 2012, it was more than 17,000 for Chandigarh. And the approval rate increased from 34% in 2002 to 53% in 2012, rather. So, is it because there was some improvement in terms of the growth of approval? Well, given that, can you tell us what the difference is between the rate of approval and the rate of those visas that are truly distributed? Our approval rate overall for visitors' visas moved to 82%. That's a very high percentage. But there was, despite the challenge that we are facing, we have issued more visas for visitors visas than ever before in 2012. We have a very dynamic approach, and the percentage is rising. We have also increased the visas in the Czech Republic, and there's a much stronger presence of foreign students in Canada, temporary workers in Canada that fall under the governance of our system in that area, and we have more tourists and business people. We have a rate of growth that's remarkable in all these areas. So Mr. Cash said that most people are more concerned about the wait time than the backlog. I remember a talk show where they said,
Given limit, visitors' visas take only 14 working days from New Delhi and Chandigarh, while super visas could take 8 to 10 weeks. Family class visas from India take 8 to 10 months, but could be much faster. Quant à moi, c'est extraordinaire qu'on a.
it's quite extraordinary, I believe, that to see a processing time like that. No. We are offering a service, improved service, everywhere in the world. In Mexico, we have express lanes, if you like, for tourists that are being used increasingly by visitors. Same thing in New Delhi, and indeed in China. A quarter of our visitors who came with these visitors' visas came from China, obtained their visas in Peking. So it is the spirit of innovation that we have demonstrated everywhere. We are very proud of our economic immigration program. It's growing quickly, it's working rapidly, but there are still backlogs. We haven't eliminated them. We've reduced them by 50% or more, but we have to move ahead with initiatives to further eliminate them from our system completely, to eliminate them completely, and we rely on you to help in this way.
Advice to my friends in the Liberal Party, but I always think it's a mark of credibility when one can simply say, yes, you've done well, instead of criticizing where no criticism is due, but saying, yes, that's good, because then when in fact there is valid criticism to be had, then it's more credible. I just can't understand the point of Mr. McCallum's statements. How can anyone deny that there's been clinical, clear improvements that continue to expand under this government in terms of processing times?
Well, people can deny, but no one can deny it if they've looked at the facts. Compare the first 5 years in office of the Liberal government to our first 5. They cut landed family members by 38%. We increased landed family members by 8%. We have increased the annual number of family sponsorships by thousands. You would never know that from what one hears from the Liberal government. They cut immigration over their time in office by 32%. We increased immigration by 7%, despite the world's worst economic downturn since the Great Recession. On settlement services, they froze service for 13 years. They froze service to help our immigrants integrate. This is something the Liberal government paid lip service to, talked about, but did nothing to actually implement. And in our time in office, we have tripled settlement service funding to $600 million across the country. We are renewing it. We're kicking the tires. We're making sure the provinces and our settlement agencies across the country are doing offering the best service to make sure immigrants get to work quickly, orient themselves quickly, find the services they need, and realize their individual and family potential in this country.
Thank you, Mr. Ayala. Ms. Ayala, your turn. 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Minister, thank you for being here today. Our colleague had asked you a great deal of questions about visas. You talk about 8 million. The link that I make with visas here is how can we protect and ensure the privacy of data as we have in Canada when there are applications made for visas in other countries that are private agencies and which take in that information that is necessary for a visa application. It's not really the department itself, but these are agencies that take the information in. This is very important. The privacy of information is important. You have people coming from all over the world that's being brought in. When you make an application, they ask you what your bank account number is, the family background, and so on. So what is the government doing to protect this information from information theft, because it is something that could occur? All the initiatives that we undertake, all the programs that we have in the department are developed and implemented and managed in very close cooperation with the Commissioner for Privacy and Information. And we have a very high standard in Canada in terms of protecting information and privacy. Yes, but when we heard the testimony Tuesday from our witnesses, they told us that expressions of interest, that visa applications came to intake centers that work with the Government of Canada in each country. But after authenticating the documents, after that, the department will be taking over the files. So the first intake location is not Canadian. In Venezuela, it was confirmed to me that it goes through a private agency. So there is some slippage, I could say, in terms of the protection of the system. It's concerning. We can, therefore, be a victim of prosecution in other countries because we didn't sufficiently protect the information. No, with respect to this network of private intake agencies, they do understand throughout the world that there is a very closely established privacy level that is important for the information that they take in. I don't think you have to be afraid of the private sector when you consider this initiative to offer a service to a growing clientele. Yes, but I'm not talking about Canadian agencies here. I'm talking about the ones that are elsewhere in other countries. The private sector, in this instance, is contracted to the federal government, to the Government of Canada. It's under contract. And so it is under the legal imperative to protect and respect the laws of Canada. Yes, but if they're not happy and they are dismissed, they can steal information. Well, not Yeah, I want to move on to another question. No, I know that there's been a reduction in cost, but that's the danger that I've just described. Now another question in subs B. We see some 30 seconds. Oh. In any case, what interests me is the case of refugees. Has there been an increase in clandestine entries into Canada because there's been a reduction in the admission of the real refugees? What happens at border control concerning the criteria of refugees? What about people whose life is imperiled when they come to Canada?
And thank you, Minister Alexander, for certainly the energy you've brought to the Immigration Department, and obviously the success with the processing times should be evident to everyone. I certainly hear that in my riding in the city of Barrie. I wanted to know if you could touch a little bit further upon the different ways that you've modernized the citizenship program to improve service standards and processing times.
Thank you very much. We've done the following. We allow applicants to rewrite their citizenship test if they're unsuccessful the first time. We think that's only fair with a more demanding test. Earlier this year, I also announced, I guess it was actually Minister Kenny that announced, but I have also reinforced it, a move to cut wait times. If applicants miss their test or interview after receiving a final notice, their case will be considered closed. And this puts responsibility back onto the individuals. We have to make sure that they aren't able to just be absent, often outside of Canada, and miss appointments again and again, eating up valuable resources in a field where, after all, we have a lot of applications to process and a backlog to deal with in citizenship, partly because citizenship is now such a popular goal for so many immigrants. We've also appointed more citizenship judges. But faster processing is also occurring as applicants who failed their first citizenship test can now rewrite it rather than wait for an appointment with a citizenship judge. This is a common sense move. Not everyone does their best on their first try on a test. And since June 2013, individuals who fail the test have had the opportunity to take it again. Preliminary results on retesting show an average pass rate of 70%. Those who fail a second time have the opportunity to demonstrate they can meet the knowledge requirement during an oral interview with a citizenship judge. We are also requiring applicants to provide evidence of language proficiency up front as of late 2012 so that the assessment of their official language capacity is more objective and speeds up decision-making by citizenship judges during processing. Over the coming years, we're looking at other modernizations, such as online applications, electronic knowledge testing of clients conducted by contracted third parties, and the monies received via Budget 2013, combined with other modernization efforts, will reduce processing times. But you know as well as I do, Mr. Brown, and your constituents in Barrie, that the new study guide has been extremely popular. Applications are now processed more effectively thanks to amendments that require this language ability to be proven. And under the Liberal system, this is just another example, you were allowed an unlimited number of no-shows. You could just not show up, not show up, not show up. Your application would be, we will not stand for that pattern of individual irresponsibility. We want our citizens to be responsible, to show up for their appointments. If they can't make one, they can come to a second, but they don't have an infinite number of options. And we have budget of $44 million over 2 years for these kinds of improvements. We will also be coming forward with new measures, as you know, as we've signaled in this committee, to ensure the backlog in citizenship applications comes down sharply, smartly in the months and years to come.
And how have these changes affected the integrity of the citizenship program, and how have you continued to combat fraud that sometimes happens within the application process?
Well, citizenship and residency fraud have been increasing concerns for decades. And as a result, we have taken strong measures both to detect the fraud, eliminate from the system, and deter fraud. We've increased our focus on citizenship revocation, We've investigated more than 7 times the total number of revocation cases processed since 1977, just since we began that initiative. And there are 3,100 people currently suspected of having obtained citizenship by misrepresenting themselves through the citizenship application process. 1,900 individuals linked to large-scale investigations have withdrawn their applications. So they will not become citizens because of the measures we've taken. And 5,200 permanent residents suspected of residence fraud have been flagged for additional scrutiny should they attempt to obtain citizenship. So we're doing a better job of tracking the people who are often linked to organized crime, who are trying to game the system, trying to beat the system, trying to obtain citizenship without even living here. And that is, as we all agree, the responsibilities of Canadian citizens are as important as the rights. That is a sign of deep irresponsibility. And preventing these people from becoming citizens is a huge improvement in the system.
Thank you.
And we're proud to have undertaken it.
Mr. Daniel has the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here. I just want to change the subject a little bit and talk more about the passports. Minister, last week you had appeared on the Budget Implementation Act, and I would like to thank you again for your time. I understand the machinery of government change transferred accountability for the passport program from the Minister of Foreign Affairs to the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration. Can you explain to us how this has impacted the passport services for Canadians?
Thanks very much. First, to finish on citizenship, demand for citizenship has increased by 30%, and we're averaging now 200,000 new citizens each year. So that's the net. In spite of our integrity measures, the number of citizens and the service delivered to them continues to improve. On passports, we are driving towards even better service. It was good when the passport office was with Foreign Affairs. We're going to make it even better. Canadians expect that as they travel more and as they rely on their passports as a tool of business and family life and communication. They will continue to receive the same access, receive access to the same passport services as they received previously, despite the transfer. And passport services have improved continuously under our government. Indeed, service is the priority in a just-in-time passport system. 5.1 million passports were issued in 2012-13. And as you all, I think, know, the 10-year e-passport, which was launched this summer, has been picked up at a record pace, beyond our expectations. 85% take-up, and 1 million issued in a couple of months. So we have one of the highest levels of service in Canada. We are respecting those service standards in 99% of cases. Since 2008, the number of Canadians with a Canadian passport increased by 20%, not after 9/11, since 2007, since the downturn. And it's forecasted to reach 70% by 2013. That's a very high level. On average, Canadians can obtain a passport in 10 business days. Expedited services are offered for an additional fee. And as you know, 100 countries or so had e-passports in one way, shape, or form. Our new passport has enhanced security measures, an electronic chip that is the gold standard in this business. And we're also moving more service online to make forms available electronically and moving towards having more points of service. We have our passport offices. Many people use the mail. Many people use MPs' offices. But we are driving towards Service Canada as a natural partner because they are already in many, many times the number of locations, I think over 200 locations, compared to the 330, compared to the 34 passport offices that we have across the country.
Thank you for that, Minister. I'd like to just further follow up on that to understand, if I understand it correctly, taxpayers are not subsidizing the application fees for passports. The fees themselves will actually cover the costs, etc. Can you explain?
Correct. And this is a very important point. Thank you for raising it, Mr. Daniel. It is full cost recovery. These are fees, not taxes, not anything else. They are fees for the cost of the service. They are adjusted according to the cost of the service. They are higher if the service is expedited. And Canadians tend to zero in on the best value for money. A 10-year passport which has a high security value, is fewer dollars per year of passport validity. And that's one of the reasons why this new passport has been very popular. But why have we succeeded in offering such good service on passports? It's partly because there is a revolving fund authorized by Parliament that allows the fees we receive to be matched, formerly in Foreign Affairs, now in CIC, to the services we deliver. So if we get a spike, an unexpected extra demand for passports, we can immediately improve the service and deliver that benefit to Canadians. We do not have that system at the moment, let me remind everyone, when it comes to visitor visas. And that we do take visitor visas in, fees in, obviously, but we don't have the ability to redeploy those resources when there is excessive demand in support of better service. I would argue, on a personal basis at this point, that there is a model in the Passport Office that deserves consideration in some of our other service lines. And I know that your committee will be considering options in that respect.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Mr. Minister, the committee agreed at a past meeting that you could be excused at 12 o'clock, because I understand you have another engagement. So you are excused, and we will eagerly await your return at another date.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you for appearing before us. We will suspend. Thank you very much. We will reconvene. The minister has left the room, and we've agreed that the deputy minister and her colleagues will continue to answer questions. Their names are before you. Deputy Minister Anita Biggis, Associate Deputy Minister Wilma Rieswick, Assistant Deputy Minister and Chief Financial Officer Tony Matson is there, and Mr. Linkletter, who of course seems to come to this meeting every other meeting. He's the Assistant Deputy Minister of Strategic and Program Policy, and Mr. Orr, of course, is another regular attendee. He is the Assistant Deputy Minister of Operations. Welcome to you all. I've agreed, Ms. Biggis, that you would have approximately 3 minutes to make some opening comments. I'm very strict, I might add.
I'll be careful.
Yes.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président et les membres.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to appear here for the first time with the new Minister of Immigration, Citizenship and Immigration. I don't have any formal remarks after the Minister has already spoken, but I would just like to make a few comments on the excellent work done by my department.
Agenda that has been underway to ensure our immigration activities are more responsive to our labour market needs and more nimble. I just wanted to stress the level of effort that has been underway in the department to modernize the department's processes and activities, and I'm very conscious of all your questions on processing times in particular. We're very conscious of the fact that the world is changing at a rapid pace around us in terms of global restructuring, competitiveness, and the information revolution that is changing the traditional model of how we work. So the objective of our modernization work has been to ensure that we are adapting and optimizing all aspects of our activities and business processes to be as effective and efficient as possible, and our relevance depends on this. So it means we've been looking at how we manage our workload, how we manage our workforce, and how we manage risk. And fundamental to this effort is making sure that we move forward in a way that provides good client service while maintaining program integrity. So while it's still early days in this modernization journey of ours, we actually are in the process of implementing a number of measures that are bearing fruit. And I wanted to just review a few of them with you. So we've been developing new ways of processing by defining and separating the more routine and straightforward processing from the more complex through centralization of some functions. Our new global case management system, which provides a more advanced information system, makes it possible to move work across the network, which would not have been possible previously. And the bottom line is that this is helping us to improve processing. The Department has also been deploying third-party service providers in the case of visa application centres around the world. And by 2014, we will have over 130 VACs in 96 countries. And the VACs do provide improved client service by helping ensure applications are complete, which reduces unnecessary delays or refusals. And I just wanted to mention that I did have a chance recently to visit one of our VACs and our missions abroad, and I'm astounded actually in terms of the difference it makes in terms of service delivery. I saw the photographs of the lineups outside our mission in Delhi every day, which were weaving outside the door, people waiting to submit their applications. And I saw the VAC as well in action, where they actually have a service standard of 10-minute wait time for people. They are not decision makers. They basically actually help to receive the applications, make sure that the applications are complete, that all the documents have been submitted. They actually package them, they triage them, they submit to the files to our mission. And what it does for our visa officers in our missions, it means that they are actually focusing on the value-added work, which is actually reviewing applications to make decisions rather than just doing paper processing part of it. It's actually quite impressive and quite outstanding, and I think really overall around the world this will actually ensure better service to clients. We've also, oh, the time is up, sorry. Okay. You are tough, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me. Mr. Cash.
She can say goodbye because just as she was wrapping up, I had taken a bite of my sandwich. So. Excuse me. Well, thank you again, Deputy Minister, and the rest of the team for being here, and congratulations on your new post. Of course, when we have the Minister in front of us, his comments and the ensuing discussion oftentimes raises more questions for us than they answer, and so we look forward to an opportunity to dig into some of these things, some specific things. So when we talk about the VACs and we see that that CIC recently signed a contract with VFS Global worth $51 million, and that's to facilitate these VACs. I'd like to know what specific services have been privatized like this by CIC, first off, and is there more planned, and what other kinds of planned privatization should we expect from the department?
Thank you for the question. Just to say that the process of moving out to, it's a contractual arrangement that we have with for these visa application centres. This is also a model that has been used by a number of other countries, certainly including the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, as basically being a mechanism for ensuring better service to clients in terms of frontline delivery in more locations, and an ability to actually make sure that applications are complete when they are submitted. So it actually speeds up client service from the point of view of it reduces the number of refusals that might be provided based on incomplete documentation being provided. So certainly, as I say, the VACs have been seen from a cost-benefit point of view of a very positive, cost-efficient mechanism. Our own staff, our own people have basically also given us feedback on the extent to which it's ensuring that they can do value-added, important work actually rather than doing paper processing. So I think I had actually just given you in my remarks the fact that we are going out to 130 visa application centres, and it means overall in terms of our processing times we should be in a better position to be able to actually focus on the value-added work in terms of making determinations on visa.
But thanks. Just to follow up on a couple of things. Now, the minister said that with the new EOI, CIC will be moving to a 6-month wait time. At what point would we get to a 6-month wait time?
The intention of the government is to actually move forward with the expression of interest system in early 2015. I think the government has indicated January 2015. So we are actually putting in place the systems and managing our workload inventory in such a manner that we would hope as soon as the expression of interest and system is implemented in 2015 that we will actually provide a 6-month wait time in terms of processing.
Okay, thanks. Now the moratorium on parents and grandparents that's going to be lifted after a 2-year moratorium, and then there's going to be a cap of 5,000. Now, there's a long backlog, and I understand the minister's perspective that moving on a go-forward basis, this is what we're going to be doing. But for families living in Canada who are trying to get their grandparents or parents in and have been trying for a long time, what measures is the department taking to deal with those? They're real people. They're living in our communities. They're not part of this go-forward 5,000 cap. What are we doing for these people, for these families?
So, Mr. Chair, in response to the question, the efforts that we've made to date have basically reduced the inventory by almost 50%. So we actually have been making headway in terms of the inventory of parent and grandparent applications. The government has also announced additional funding of $44 million over 2 years, which will be applied to enhance processing to make sure that we can work through that inventory. There's also the super visa, which basically provides for a 10-year entry visa for parents and grandparents. So we think that that certainly will actually facilitate the ability of families to actually bring over their parents and grandparents in terms of visits. The government had increased admissions, I think, as the minister indicated, to 50,000 between 2012 and 2013, which is the highest number that we've ever had in our levels plan. And the intention is to actually reopen applications as of January 2014, and the idea is to actually cap it at 5,000. So, in fact, we won't be dealing with a backlog and a large inventory, that we can actually give individuals some sense of certainty and expectation that we're not sort of growing a backlog that people will have to wait much longer.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Ms. Bateman.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et bienvenue.
Thank you, Chairman, and welcome to all our witnesses.
Madam Deputy Minister, but it just struck me that I was so interested in your comments, particularly about the process flow improvements and the client service improvements that you've initiated. So if you want to take just a little bit of my time to recap those important client service improvement pieces, I'd appreciate that.
So,
and then I'll ask whatever I want.
I may ask my colleagues to join in. But as I said, I mean, I certainly witnessed firsthand the benefits of the Visa Application Center. Certainly we will be in many more locations than we could possibly be in terms of our own missions abroad. From a client service point of view, there's a very rigorous framework under our contracts with these Visa Application Centers in terms of the service expectations that they have to provide, but also quality assurance and oversight and monitoring. The other issue is that we have introduced e-applications, online applications for temporary resident visas, so it will be actually easier for people to apply for a visa coming to Canada. We've actually also moved to e-medical, so where you require certainly a medical certificate, we're actually doing that online as well, which certainly has saved time in terms of being able to sort of do these kinds of assessments. We've introduced multiple entry visas, which means that we're reducing the number of applications that have to come in for single entry visas. As the Minister mentioned as well, we actually have introduced things like the Business Express program and the sort of student, the Travel Student Partnership, which again actually gives a streamlined, facilitated access to come to Canada in addition to the super visa. So these are many initiatives, and with our global case management system now, which is the basic IT platform, we can work around the world in terms of our caseload and our application intake. We can move workload around the country depending on if you have, or really anywhere in the network. So if you have downtime in one, you can move some of the caseload to other parts of the system. So in that sense, it is helping us to move forward in terms of improving our process times. But these things actually also take time to be able to implement. We're still, as I was saying in my comments, in the early stages of implementation of some of these initiatives. We're looking at going further with online applications, certainly in terms of the permanent resident category as well. I mean, our hope is that we will be going online in that area as well, and ultimately with passports as well, which will be another improvement to service. So, as I said, I just wanted to say that we really are embarking, I think, on a pretty ambitious agenda of modernization in terms of trying to facilitate the movement to Canada in a timely manner.
All right, I appreciate that. And now I'm going to, whatever I'm allowed to ask of my questions. In December of 2012, our government introduced a new asylum system to accelerate processing of refugee claims and to deter abuse of the system, and to help the people who need the help. Could you just elaborate what new measures have been put in place to achieve these goals? And again, that's a client service focus and helping the people who need help focus.
I can respond, Mr. Chair, and I think as we come up on a year's anniversary of the implementation of the new system, we have a good set of numbers behind the results that we've seen to date. Through the major reforms, what we introduced were timelines to ensure that individuals were being heard at the IRB at the first level within specific time periods, whether they were claiming at a port of entry or after having been in Canada for a certain amount of time. We found that the timelines are being met in almost all, in a vast majority of cases, which is resulting in people getting positive protection decisions sooner than they had under the previous regime, which could have taken 21, 24 months, for example, with people waiting in limbo for that kind of certainty. What the new system has also done is to stream applicants from certain countries, so those who come from what are termed designated countries of origin that don't normally produce refugees are given a fast-track system, which basically mirrors the previous system in that there is a hearing at the IRB and recourse to the federal court. Those who come from other countries that are not designated have access to a new refugee appeal division that's been established at the IRB, which adds that second layer of review for those individuals, plus the federal court as a final recourse after that. CBSA has been given funds to launch a pilot project on assisted voluntary returns, which they are administering with the International Organization for Migration out of Toronto, with very positive results after the first 16 months, whereby we're seeing a great deal of take-up on people who have had a negative decision or have decided they want to abandon their claim and to return voluntarily to their country of origin. So that helps with lowering removal costs downstream. It actually helps provide in-kind assistance to these people who take the decision to leave voluntarily, and the IOM then is able to help them once they arrive home.
Thank you, Mr. Linklater. Mr. Weston is next.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being with us today. Ms. Begouche, you've just said that
passports. Peut-être c'est encore une illustration de notre programme de modernisation.
perhaps this is an illustration of the modernization that the minister was speaking about. Can you give us a bit more detail? Can you elaborate on what there is in the passport program that reflects our desire to modernize? Can we find perhaps some formulae that can be used on the internet? And are there cost savings for taxpayers in so doing?
Quand on regarde le programme de passeport,
when you look at the current passport program, you can say yes, it is on the website, but it's a PDF form.
Download. What we're going to be doing, as the deputy indicated, we are leveraging the global case management system, and we would be moving the passport system by using that kind of a system within for passports, so that you could have over time end-to-end automation of the passport application. And in that way, someone can renew simply and easily their passport, and so that over time the whole thing is automated. Now, when you have a system, a PDF type form, where you have to download, you fill it in, you may forget information, you send it in, there's a problem with your application because you've left some information out, then there's a recommunication with the client. All of those steps take time for the client, and they also are costly. So by going to a fully automated end-to-end transaction type system, we would expect that over time the cost per transaction should come down.
Est-ce qu'il est possible de...
And is it possible to know when these changes will be implemented? The change in machinery for the passport program has been done. We are in a transitional period, and we want to be sure that the system is used with prudence. Therefore, we think that we know that this will be carried out over some time over coming years. But in this time of change, with all these changes, we want to be able to provide the same level of service.
Program, we want to make sure that Passport's record of high-quality service is continued. And so we want to make sure we manage that carefully.
Plus tôt dans cette session, nous allons faire une comparaison.
A little later on, we will. Earlier on, we are going to make an comparison about Canada and another country as to the changes and how they are working. Have you made any comparisons between Canada and other countries in terms of the changes in visas, in terms of citizenship changes? The cost for us as taxpayers is what is important here. Is it possible to make this type of comparison? Yes. We have worked on that, but we don't have the figures, the hard figures with us today, but we'd send them, of course, to the clerk. and we will do so quite quickly. But Canada is well positioned with respect to our competitors, the U.S. and Australia.
Basically, we are very competitive among those 5 countries for the range of services that we offer.
What about the costs to us as Canadians? That's a harder comparison, isn't it? But is it possible to make the comparison? Not the cost to the applicants, but the cost.
Whether or not it's full cost recovery, we have done some work there as well, and we would be able to share the results of that with the committee through the clerk.
Thank you all.
We'll have one more speaker for round 4, and then we'll start all over again. The final speaker is Ms. Sitsawiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for coming, our return guests and our new guests. Congratulations to you, Ms. Vigus? Vigus, okay. Pardon my sniffliness. The supplementary estimates outlines transfers from CBSA to CIC or from CIC to and transport to the RCMP for activities related to 2015 Pan Am and Para-Pan Am Games, and these supplementary estimates that we have. But what we don't see are actually credits to ensure that refugees and immigrants continue to have fair access to health services or family reunifications. Services that some would argue actually help refugees and immigrants integrate into our Canadian society. Could you help inform the committee which programs and administrative services are having money taken away in order for these transfers to happen?
Thank you for the question. Just to clarify, in terms of the transfer from Canada Border Services Agency and the supplementary estimates, that basically is a cost in terms of decommissioning an old, what we call the field operations support system, and integrating it fully with our global case management system. So there's no loss of data, and the system will be fully efficient and integrated, and will actually allow for improved information sharing. In terms of the question itself, in terms of there are no supplementary estimates here for access to health services for refugees per se. That is covered under the main estimates expenditures for the interim federal health program. And the estimates are not, I don't think, showing any kind of a reduction to the interim federal health program per se, but the government did announce changes to the interim federal health program, largely to align the program with comparable services that are provided to Canadians, that Canadians are eligible to receive. So the majority of refugee claimants and successful refugees will continue to receive services under the interim federal health program for hospital and doctor services until such time, because it's a temporary program that bridges to provincial territorial health programs.
Sorry, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you because I only have 5 minutes, and we are familiar with the program, with the interim federal health program. That is actually where I was going with my next question, so perfect segue there. A recent report by the Wellesley Institute titled The Real Cost of Cutting the Interim Federal Health Program has outlined issues and recommendations for the interim federal health program. Their assessment is that the changes in the IFH have had negative effects that Minister Kenney assured us would not happen. The information collected in their assessment indicates that the new system creates confusion, lessens access to healthcare services among the vulnerable populations, leads to inconsistency in care across Canada, and results in poorer health and avoidable illness for refugee and refugee claimants. This is from the report itself. So, like you mentioned in the main estimates, how can CIC ask for additional funding to support their interim federal health program, which, as you mentioned right now, provides temporary health care for refugees, while stakeholders are reporting across the country how many people are actually suffering from the cuts? So my question is, weren't these cuts made so that the money spent on the program wouldn't increase? So now we're trying to spend more money on the interim federal health program, but actually are providing less service, and there's more cuts to the services being provided.
So if I can just clarify, Mr. Chair, the majority of refugee claimants and successful refugees continue to qualify for services, for hospital and doctor services. The intention of the program was that services and benefits should not be provided at a level more than Canadians would have access to. So in the case of rejected claimants, they no longer receive coverage unless unless there are public health, public safety issues, because they do not have legal status in Canada.
And that
we
also,
understand with the change.
Just to understand, that also includes pregnant women and people going through labor as well, right? If they are rejected?
If they're a rejected claimant, unless, as I say, there are public health or public safety issues. And we understand with any kind of a transition in a program, it can create confusion in terms of what services are covered, what benefits are covered. And to respond to that, we actually have ensured that our call center is able and equipped to answer any calls. We actually have also have a portal that actually has lots of information and questions and answers for health practitioners. So we have tried to actually ensure that information is provided, certainly as well with PT governments in terms of the nature of the services and the benefits that are provided, and understand that during a period of transition there may be some confusion in terms of what's covered and what's not covered, but certainly the majority of refugee claimants and successful refugee applicants will in fact continue to receive hospital and doctor services.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. That concludes the fourth round. We are now starting again on the first round. Mr. Wallace.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank our guests for being here. And as the Deputy Minister is new, I'm new to this committee too, so I did a little work from the previous year just to get myself up to speed on a few things. And part of the estimates process, as you know, is the plans and priorities documents that are produced every year, normally presented shortly after the mains are out. So I was reading them, and there was one of interest to me that I thought maybe you could clarify for me. And one of the priorities as part of the estimates process is strengthening the outcomes based on management as a priority, which seems sort of motherhood and apple pie is obviously what we should be doing. But it says the CIC's new program, Alignment Architecture, the PPEA, and the Performance Measures Framework, the PMFA, was to be introduced as of April. So I'd like to know how it's going. What is your expectations of outcomes from this? And does this mean that if a program is not working, that you are going to bring it forward, that this isn't meeting the goals that we set out to do, and maybe we should either restructure the program or get rid of it? Could you explain what that means?
Thank you for the question. A very good question. I think to put this in appropriate context, each department has a program activity architecture, and we are, with Treasury Board guidance, able to then outline for public consumption and for parliamentarians in particular our various lines of business down to what we call activity level or sub-activity level. And this helps us in terms of our planning and our budgeting process to understand where our resources are going in terms of meeting certain program objectives. Within those sub-activities, we do look at performance indicators to be able to measure our success in terms of delivering outcomes for Canadians. And what you're referring to from CIC's RPP relates to essentially our performance measurement strategy and our data strategy to support our ability to measure our work and to be able to then report on outcomes so that we have a good evidence base for future policy decisions. So as we move forward and are able to make the links to available data sources that can then be applied against our programs, we're then able to support evaluations.
So did that not exist prior to April 1st?
Well, this priority was first introduced with the PAA in 2011, and it was renewed in 2013-14. I would say that we have always tried to use best available evidence in developing our policy and programs, but the PAA rigor and the performance measurement strategy, the data strategy underneath, now brings a comprehensive coverage to our range of programs, which might have not necessarily been the case in the past.
Okay.
Can I just add to that?
Sure.
That under the government's evaluation policy, as directed and guided by Treasury Board, certainly every department is required to perform evaluations, and that certainly has been an activity of the department, certainly well before 2011, an ongoing process. We evaluate each individual program. We actually have a 5-year plan in terms of identifying what we evaluate. And I think what Mr. Linkletter is referring to is basically now we're talking about a more comprehensive framework across the department in terms of an integrated framework.
Thank you for that. And I have been active on previous committee in government operations where we estimates is sort of my thing here on the Hill, and have been interested in it, and we are moving. And I must admit, I appreciate the work that Treasury Board is making. You guys do in terms of providing better information or these estimates compared to B's from last year. It's just, you'll see I don't have as much writing on it because I can understand it more easily. And we have at that committee indicated that we would like estimates to be in a program format more than the system that we have now, and we are moving in that direction. And I think that will be your program outcome evaluation should match up nicely for us to be able to say, yes, we're meeting our outcomes, no, we're not, and do we need more money or less money there. On that area, though, the one area that always drives me crazy is horizontal funding. Because, you know, and for your department, which is fair, there's lots of integration with other departments on providing programs. No doubt about it. Who decides who's in charge and who's responsible for those programs? Is it the largest funder, or is it the, how does that work?
So, Mr. Chair, in response to that question, normally when you have an interdepartmental initiative of involving a number of departments, usually at the very outset of the initiative, it's clearly determined at the policy stage which department is the lead department. And as part of that process, both in the policy process but also when you have to go forward to Treasury Board in terms of seeking the actual detailed expenditure authorities and program authorities, part of that process also includes the need for a performance framework that basically identifies the roles and responsibilities of various departments. And usually one lead department is assigned the responsibility to sort of pull all of it together and make sure that there is a consistent framework that integrates all of the pieces, and then you're able to sort of determine and assess whether in fact you're meeting the intentions and the objectives that have been set for the program.
So when you bring out your fall performance report, does it indicate, even if it's a shared program, what your role was in that particular program?
It should. Every department should, in fact, report on its programs in terms of the DPR, in terms of performance achieved.
Another question that's sort of from the previous estimates, and so it's not in these estimates, but it's from the previous estimates, and I think may happen in future estimates, which I don't understand, is when we no longer require a visa from a certain country, it costs us money. I saw in the B's last year. I have no idea why not requiring a visa now costs the taxpayer money for that to happen. Can somebody explain to me why that is?
Well, in the long run, I think that there are savings from that. But initially, there can be an issue of foregone revenue. For instance, we are charging a certain amount per visa, and that money is no longer coming to the Consolidated Revenue Fund. So that is one significant issue. Then there's a second part of it. There's a lot of infrastructure to deliver a visa program, and we work with Foreign Affairs on that. But if we withdraw the visa officers or close it, a visa office, we may not receive those savings immediately. It may take some time until we are out of a rent situation and so on. And so in the long run, yes, but in the short run, we may not see the savings.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then, I don't know my...
Mr. His turn.
Thank you. I may be back.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to get to back to a couple questions around the VACs and VFS Global. The Deputy Minister mentioned that this type of program has been used in the United Kingdom. But you also know that in 2007, VFS was involved in a security breach of personal information in the UK that prompted an independent investigation. So, given their involvement with, their current involvement with visas and biometrics, as seen in these estimates, you know, we need to know what kind of level of accountability is built into this deal that's been made between the government and this private company to deal with personal information. And this is in the context of an increasing awareness of the difficulty across government programs to secure private information. So now we're talking about farming this stuff out to a private company operating, potentially subcontracting, which is another question I want to get to, potentially subcontracting to smaller companies, and there's no sense here that we have proper transparency, accountability, and the security built into this that Canadians and families, immigrants, and their loved ones who are making these applications want to know as well that their information is secure. Can you give us some assurance here? Tell us what measures the government has taken to ensure the privacy of these individuals.
The nature of the contracts that we have for the visa application centres, in fact, include very stringent provisions related to the protection of information and the management of information and the security of that information. So we have to be satisfied that the contractor has appropriate security processes in place to protect that information. We have we work very closely with the visa application centres in our missions abroad, and there is oversight in terms of the kind of control mechanisms that would apply to those visa application centres. So there is oversight and there is monitoring in terms of how the visa application centres are conducting their operations to ensure the privacy and the security of that information. And I can ask my colleague, Mr. Orr, but I believe as well that there are provisions in the contracts as well in terms of penalty clauses. In fact, if we have any concerns that somehow aspects of the obligations that have been contained are somehow being compromised or violated. But perhaps Mr. Orr can fill in on that.
The Deputy Minister, I think, has covered all the principal issues. There are regular audits. There are regular visits by our visa officers to the various visa application centres to ensure that the appropriate practices are in place. And just to give you a couple of examples, for instance, the visa application centres have no role in the decision-making process and so on.
We understand that.
But to the point that when a passport is returned to them, they have no idea whether a visa was issued or not. They hand over a package to the individual. They are completely unaware of what the decision was on any particular application. In terms of taking biometrics, there's a video camera that is going the whole time that biometrics are taken, and indeed in Ottawa we can monitor and watch what has happened during the entire process. So these sorts of very practical ways that we're able to monitor what is going on.
Just on that, and sorry to interrupt, but just so you can watch every excuse me, every incidence of the taking of biometrics. That is correct. That's videotaped and given to your office and stored.
That is correct.
For how long?
I'm not sure of how long it is retained, but it's a few months. But I could provide that specific to you.
Okay. To the clerk, please.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you.
Tell us about the subcontract. Are you aware of whether VFS Global is subcontracting these to other outfits?
I'm not aware of that.
I'm not aware of that happening, but I can confirm that again, Mr. Chair, through the clerk.
Okay. You know, the other question around these VICs is what are the fee? What are the extra fees for applicants that didn't exist before? Can you tell us what they are?
There is a fee for taking the biometrics, which includes the visa application center fee. It's $85. For dealing with the visa application center, there is a fee as well, but our experience is that people have, where they've had the option of either going to the visa office or going through the visa application center, overwhelmingly they have chosen the visa application center because there's much better service provided and in their language. So our experience has been that our clientele have very much welcomed Visa Application Center and seen it as a significant client service improvement.
Mm-hmm. So let me just get this straight. So to save some money and potentially please the people who are using the service, you subcontract it out, but then you're allocating staff to monitor this office. I mean, so tell me, is this extra staff, or is this the same staff that's doing other work, or how is that working?
Largely, it is the same staff that were doing it previously. They're visa officers who would be involved in monitoring the work with the visa application centers. It is a client service initiative which has proven itself significantly. The Deputy Minister made reference to the lines and what was outside the Delhi office as an example, which developed its own industry as people were outside selling things into lines and so on.
With the greatest respect, I understand that there's lineups there. We've got lineups in our constituency offices in Canada for these situations. So I think we all understand that there's lineups. If I might just say something parenthetically.
You're already over, but please be quick.
Okay, that I got to say that the reference to people as clients instead of rather than the members of families who also live here in Canada is something which I just want to raise and put on the record as something that concerns us, that the language around immigrants and applicants for visas that we're looking at them as clients and economic digits as opposed to members of families who live here. And that's the essential issue that we're dealing with at this committee, is the family reunification, is bringing families together. And that's the great frustration. So when I hear that we're allocating funds for private company, but then also taking resources that we need.
I'm going to have to move on. I'm sorry, you're way over. Mr. McCallum.
Anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to the officials. First of all, I want you to know that the somewhat negative tone of some of my questions to the Minister doesn't change the fact that I do recognize you're working in the department very hard to improve services. I guess my difference with him is mainly on interpretation of certain statistics. But my first question has to do with that, because he said that in 2012, Canada was admitting a record high number of parents and grandparents, but that is not true, because the department's own statistics show that the number admitted in 2012 was 21,815, and in 2002, 22,502. I think what the Minister was referring to was the upper end of the range for admissions, and that was 25,000, which may well have been a record high, but that's a high end of the range. That's not an actual number, and what is important is the actual numbers admitted. So I'd ask if you could comment on that point.
The commitment that the government made to parents and grandparents was to admit 50,000 over 2 years, over a 2-year period. And at this point in time, our indications are where we are to date, is that we are on track to meeting 50,000 over that 2-year period. So, as I say, you have to look at it in terms of what the numbers may have been 1 year over the other year, but the total over 2 years will be 50,000, and we are confident that we are on track to meet that commitment.
But that's the high end of the range, 25,000 a year, and the actual number for 2012 is not 25,000, it's 21,815. So would you agree that that number is less than the number in 2002?
As I was responding earlier, that the commitment is to 50,000 over 2 years, and we are confident that certainly the number of admissions in 2013 will certainly lead to a 50,000 commitment over 2 years, over that 2-year period.
But can you answer the specific question? The actual number in 2012, 21,815, is less than the actual number in 2002, 22,502.
We'll have to get back to you, Mr. Chair, with the 2002 numbers. We don't have that information with us, but we're happy to provide that feedback to the committee after we leave the
Once
meeting.
again, Deputy Minister, to the clerk, please.
Okay, thank you. With regard to the Philippines and the additional assistance provided to expedite Filipinos who were adversely affected by the tragedy there. I'm wondering what form that help will take. For example, there must be parents and grandparents who would like to come from Philippines to Canada, but applications are not now allowed until January 1st, I understand, when 5,000 will be allowed. Is there any move to allow parents and grandparents to make an exception for Filipino parents and grandparents given the gravity of their situation?
Thank you very much for the question. We have a variety of measures in place to try to respond to the tragedy in the Philippines. Certainly, we are providing priority processing to clients which are already underway, and we are trying to contact applicants in a proactive manner to people who have an address in any of the affected areas and trying to move them to the front of the queue. We have a dedicated phone line, electronic mailbox, and so on to try to respond to that through the Foreign Affairs Watch line. We also have 24/7 coverage on that. We've issued a number of passports to people in the affected area, and we are trying to respond in a compassionate and flexible manner to
Again, that's not really my question. For parents and grandparents who are not yet in the queue, would there be a possibility of admitting them to apply in view of the situation in the Philippines?
There are means to make themselves known to us, and we will deal with them on a case-by-case basis.
So you are saying that they might be allowed to apply, even though generally such people are not allowed to apply at this time?
If I can just maybe jump in here as well, they do have access to super visas, which would actually allow them to come into Canada. We would and are prepared to and ready to facilitate super visas for family members to come to Canada, and also for extensions for those who are already in Canada and where the period of time may be running out on their visas. So looking for various means to facilitate and make sure that we can have family members reunited.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, and follow up on a point that Mr. McCallum was talking about in terms of the Philippines. I have a large Philippines population in Filipino Canadians in Barrie. I was at a function on Saturday night, and obviously a lot of the talk relates to the tragedy there. And I know that your department is doing lots of incredible work in dealing with this very difficult situation. But I guess there's a dual challenge. One, trying to process as many as possible to help as many of the connected families as we can, but balancing the need for security, which is obviously very important as well. In the midst of this this challenge, how is your department dealing with that?
Well, there are ways that we are able to expedite applications and to put them to the front of the queue so that we are able to get through them. But certainly our concerns about the safety and security and health of Canadians remains paramount, and we will only be issuing visas when we are satisfied that those measures are in place and that we've done appropriate processing.
Mm-hmm. We had an immigration committee on Tuesday, and there was a variety of academic witnesses. There was one from the University of Waterloo. I made a note of some of the comments he made. First of all, he commended the government for getting all the international students to school on time despite the challenge of the strike. But he talked about and discussed the need to bring the brightest international students to Canadian universities while at the same time expanding the numbers. And so he sort of probed the discussion of getting the best possible students being the #1 goal, while the secondary goal is numbers. And I know the colleges and universities in Canada tremendously appreciate the emphasis that we've put on the recruitment of international students. I think of my own college in Barrie, where the Georgian College has seen the numbers triple, and obviously that helps build bricks and mortar, and it enhances the fabric of the college. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what Citizenship and Immigration is doing towards the goal of more international students and attracting the best.
perhaps I can begin by basically saying that our department is processing more international students than ever before. From the period of 2006 to 2012, the number of applications increased from 155,000 to almost 228,000. In 2012, over 145,000 study permit applications were processed overseas. That represents a 37% increase over 2008. Certainly the department made great efforts this summer at the time of the withdrawal of service to make sure that we were giving priority attention to student applications, and in fact we processed more student applications this summer than we did in the year previous, and again met our service times in terms of our turnaround times. We are also actively engaged, certainly in terms of the international student strategy. I think certainly that the government has been engaged in and will continue to be engaged in terms of ensuring that we are attracting the best and the brightest to come to Canada. We are actually as well ensuring that we are working with provinces and territories as well in terms of the linkages, in terms of how we can encourage students to come to Canada to study in our educational institutions. So we actually do have many measures underway in terms of encouraging students to come to Canada, and I don't know if you want to add to that, Mr. Orr or Mr. Linkletter?
No, I think you've essentially covered it, but one of the various things we can do in terms of citizenship and immigration particularly is to maintain good service standards for our students, and we are doing that.
Georgian College is twinned with campuses in Chandigarh, India, and in Ahmedabad, India, and I've talked to some of the staff members of Georgian College on the recruitment efforts, and they have told me that some of their primary competition is within schools in the U.S. and Australia. How do you feel we stand in comparison with the U.S. and Australia in terms of processing times? Obviously, they get huge number of foreign students, and sometimes the climate is a little better in those countries when trying to get students from India or Asia. But obviously, Canada is a very welcoming place, and one that I think the students I spoke to in Barrie feel that they fit in very well and are welcomed in a very friendly Canadian way. How do we stand in terms of our international competitors for foreign students?
Thank you for the question. Obviously, if someone is considering which country they're going to go to, there will be a number of different factors, processing being only one of those. Frankly, I do not have the specifics of, particularly in Chandigarh, for instance, of processing. I do know in Chandigarh that Canada is the only country which does processing in Chandigarh. But I do not have the comparison of timing with other countries. I know Canada is fairly competitive on that score, but I don't have the specifics. We could track that down for
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I'm sorry, I have to cut you off short because we have to vote. I want to thank you, Deputy Minister Biggis, and your colleagues for coming and answering the questions of the committee, and you are excused. Thank you. Members of the committee, we have to report on the supplementary estimates. I have a number of requests of you. Sounds like the Wild West show, doesn't it? Shall vote 1B under Citizenship and Immigration carry? On division? Shall vote 5B under Citizenship and Immigration carry? On division? Shall vote 7B under Citizenship and Immigration carry? On division? Shall I report the supplementary estimates to the House? And that too is on division. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting is adjourned.